Meeting call to order. Roll call. All members present. Martha Gutierrez is on the phone with us. We have no public comment or hearing session. Adjourn to closed session. Reconvene to open session. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Report on action taken in closed session. In closed session, the board took action to approve a settlement agreement with employee ID number 287693 by a unanimous vote. The employee is to remain on paid administrative leave through March 31st, 2021, and thereafter resigns from employment. Call for an adoption of the agenda to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's for removal of action item M1. It's not necessary to hold the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Martha, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Programs and presentations. Our first presentation, we have Mr. Gary Soto of GDS Consulting.
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to be here tonight. My name is Gary Soto, and I've been working with the district for a few years now. I became aware of, or started working here because Chuck, our former superintendent here, asked me to work with him in the schools. I was Chuck's coach when he was a middle school principal in Sacramento, and then moved on with him as he was the superintendent up north. And when he came here, he gave me a call and said it would be great to work with you here. So it's indeed a pleasure for me to be here.
Excuse me, could you hold the mic up a little closer to you? There you go.
I travel all over the country, and this is I live in Palm Springs, and this is quite a nice difference than getting on a flight and going somewhere else. I've been in the business for 46 years. I'm a former kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, third grade teacher, fourth grade teacher, fifth grade teacher, sixth grade teacher, former elementary principal, former middle school principal, and then I've worked as a consultant with school boards for the last 25 years around the country, as large as LAUSD, Chicago, and as small as a one school district. So I'm here to share with you in terms of what the work we've been doing, what I've been doing here with your school principals. And I'm going to follow. You have a copy of this, I believe, on this. And this is a recent study that came out, predicted that students would experience a learning loss of 30% in reading and 50% in math as a result of the COVID crisis. And where they get these numbers are from various studies that they've done. Districts have been using their own benchmarks, their own assessments, and are able to detect in terms of what's happening with student academic progress. They're feeling that if left unchecked and districts decide to really not provide the interventions needed, that it'll be an academic setback that could derail even those students that are at grade level. But it's going to be disastrous for those kids that are students of color, students of disability, and are students of poverty. So what's happening across the country is people are beginning to deal with the fact that if schools do not reopen, they're looking at 2021, 22 to be the year that they begin an effort to make up for that learning loss. I'm here to tell you that Palo Verde Unified School District is well on its way and is quite more advanced than most school districts. Why? because the state of California has been working for the past 2 years on a very comprehensive literacy plan before COVID. And then when we started with the closure of schools in March, they began looking at the different data that was out there on trying to meet the needs of kids. So the state literacy plan is going to be state board approved on March 21st, approved by the State Board of Education. And in reality, all school districts will be impacted by this literacy plan. Because if any fundings come from the state, they'll ask you to align the work that you're doing based on what the literacy plan is asking us to do. It's a very comprehensive plan, but what I did is I pulled out 3 of the top areas that they hit. And those 3 are access and equity, which is a big term used across the United States with schools. MTSS, which is a multi-tiered system, and I think you have a copy of the pyramid. That's a multi-tiered system. And best first instruction. So those are the 3 areas, but I wanted to share with you that across the country, a lot of the school districts have been spending money on access and equity, looking at biases within the district and looking at issues of racism, but very few have taken the pathway towards where does access and equity fall with learning. And the state of California decided that that needed to be the focus. And so what they mean by access is that every student in our district will be afforded the opportunity to have a world-class education. They deem the term world-class by saying, here are the things we need to do that the research has been telling us for many, many years. And then with that, if the kids have access to that there should be no inequities. However, when you start a process of reform, you will see and acknowledge the fact that there will be inequities in the system for kids, especially in the learning part of it. And I'll share some information about that as we move on. The 3 tiers are powerful. I'll describe them, what they mean for us. And the best first instruction, of course, is a part of those three tiers. Out of that whole comprehensive plan, there were 6 we looked at must-dos that districts need to look at. Every one of these 6 that the state would like districts to look at is what Palo Verde Unified School District is focusing on now. And I say that because I'm working with a lot of districts out there, and very few, I would say maybe 20% of the districts are actually now focusing on this because they actually haven't seen the plan. We know the plan has been existed for the last year. We are front-loading it because we knew this was coming. And so here are what we're looking at. When you look at that pyramid, and I'll kind of put that up there. When you look at this pyramid here, and I'll try to speak out loudly. Tier 1 are kids identified at or above, at, or slightly below grade level. They're called universal. Tier 2 are students that are about anywhere below grade level, about 1.9, not quite 2 years below grade level. Tier 3 are kids that are reading 2 or more grade levels below. The research out there across the country as they look at MTSS, they would like districts to be at 80% of the kids here, 15% of the kids here, and 5% of the kids here. When you look at the MTS standings across the state, most districts, especially those in Southern California, are inverted, meaning the majority of kids are Tier 2 and Tier 3. So they're asking, what are we going to do about it? One of the things that the state did not do is define what you should be doing in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So looking at the research and where the trends are going, these are each one of these bullet points identifies exactly what schools should be focusing on in terms of that. And if, when I go back here, those are some of the main focus areas. Student goals. The student, when he comes to school, she or she comes to school, should tell you what their reading goal is, their math goal is, and if you have a social emotional goal. Most school districts don't have students have a student goal, but that's going to be an emphasis. Right now, elementary students have a literacy goal called a Lexile goal. Eventually, they'll have a quantile goal for math and an SEL goal. So you're right on target and moving in that area. Standards deconstruction has been going on, breaking apart those standards, trying to find out what the standards are asking the students to know and be able to do is a part of the process that the teachers are going through now. They go through that process because the next one up here, school-wide instructional strategy, which in essence is best first instruction, is the most powerful strategy for instructional delivery. And no one can refute those claims. It's a 30-year history of American education in terms of research, that if you deliver instruction in this manner, you will get mastery of the standards. So for the past 2-3 years, April, you're saying we've been working on direct interactive instruction. It's ongoing in terms of where we're going. Tier 2, so those kids that are below grade level but not quite 2, we are looking this year in plans for schools to identify strategic interventions or strategic scaffolds to help any of these kids here deal with the goals that they face here, because they're all a part of Tier 1. They go to class, they're in Tier 1 classes, but classes have Tier 2 kids, and they struggle with Tier 1. So we are providing scaffolds for these kids to do well here. The thing that's missing in the majority of school districts across the state is a Tier 3. That's an intensive intervention program. It's an accelerated program. So intense means that it is so focused in terms of accelerating their learning. The main objective for schools is for a student to start school in the 3rd grade, and at the end of 3rd grade gain 1 year of academic growth. With an accelerated program, they can gain anywhere from 2 to 3 years in 1 year. And the program that we're looking at here, and Tracy and April can give you more info later on it, is corrective reading, which is one of the most powerful programs in the country. It's an accelerated program, and now we're looking at implementing it in grades 3 through 8, and also at the 9th grade level at the high school. That program is going to be absolutely powerful for you kids, because those kids that are struggling learners, struggling readers, are finally going to get the accelerated program to meet their needs. So those are the 3 big areas that are the 3 tiers that the district is targeting. And when it comes down to access part and equity, is that we still are trying to balance it, because we're trying to make sure that all kids have teachers that are delivering effective instruction. And those kids that have teachers that are not fall into the inequity piece to it. So as we look at the balance of this, this is kind of the direction that the district is going. I gave you a sample of an action plan. That's an action plan that is being created now by the schools. All of them have this in terms of an action plan that target, and they target Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And that's very powerful as well as they go through this. And teacher leaders in some of the sites are very involved in what they're doing and how they're planning and where they're going. But I will say this in my closure, that again, you guys are really at the forefront in doing what needs to be done, and it's a matter of staying the course, not getting off the course. Are there any questions?
I was actually going to ask you what testing they were used to get this, but I'm seeing here on the plan that they're using the SBAC, but they're also using local
Yes.
measurements, so
Mhm.
tests that the teachers and administrators
Yeah.
are coming up to.
And more than likely, the state will, of course, it's up and down, up and down. They were hoping with the governor's incentive that they would get enough schools to come back full-time to administer the SBAC. I personally don't give it any hope. I think the time that they will do the SBAC will be the spring of 2021. I think the collective bargaining agencies will make sure that people aren't held accountable for those scores after this year. That what we need right now is to find out where our kids are. Where are they? How much learning loss did they have? And or did we find students that did not have that learning loss? Who are they? How did that happen?
So without the SBAC, without it being likely that they take that, are we able to implement this still with just using the MyOn or the Lexile and our local testing so that we can, we're not waiting for that additional year for the kids to take the SBAC?
No, in fact, we were all poised to take the test in, last year.
Right.
We were all ready. We were prepared. We were excited about it. And then, of course, it didn't happen. So the same, I think we'll have now a year, starting now until the spring of next year, to get in here and ready for this, to see where our kids are. And then we can rethink about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and emphasize more strategic interventions.
But we are able to start those interventions if we are back to school, say in
Absolutely.
August. We can start those interventions without having SBAC scores.
Oh,
We're
God, yes.
confident to
All of
get
them-
comfortable
all
with.
of them can be started, yes. Yeah.
The training, is this necessarily starting at the elementary level and not so much for the high school? No, in other words, we're giving up on the high school, starting at the elementary, try to get this going. So basically, we're starting at the lower levels, trying to.
Some of the, and this is a great question, thanks for asking that. Some of the intense training is starting with pre-K 1, 2, and also then with tier 3, starting at grade 3. We would like nothing better than for kids to walk into the middle school grades of grade 6, not being in tier 3. To meet the challenges of their reading struggles and make sure that they enter at least grade 5 or 6 at grade level. There is corrected reading also at the high school, so that's where we're going as well. And there are the really momentum in terms of direct instruction at the high school level as well.
Yeah, I know the frustration with teachers is that the home environment isn't exactly what you expect, so it's kind of hard because I've seen plans after plans after plans, years after years and years, and we seem to divert from one plan to another, then to another again, and we get nowhere. And that's why we've been pushing for our superintendent to carry on from the last time. Hopefully that's going to be helpful, but it's so discouraging when you keep seeing things, from the Common Core to before that, no Child Left Behind, and things keep changing, but things don't seem to be getting any better even before the virus started. What I see is still a lot of kids struggling, especially the males. The boys
Right.
are seem to be in worse shape than they were
Right.
during my time. But I don't know. The interventions, are they working? 'Cause I don't see it. I don't see it. So there's got to be a way to show that things are getting better than just keep doing plans and plans and plans, because are these plans working? We've gone through a lot of training with the teachers,
Right.
and then I go out there and I don't see teachers implementing that training. So that's even a big problem right there, So to me, it just, I need to see things
Right.
progressing.
And you deserve to see things.
Mm-hmm.
But let me address one of the comments you made. One of the things that stops reform or the things happening for success for kids is when there's a change of course every time a new leader comes on board.
That's right.
And when there's
Mm.
a new leader that comes on board, they go off into another tangent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of educators are frustrated because they get all built up for one thing and then all of a sudden it's something new. The great part about these things here, they're not new. They're what the research has been asking us to do for many, many years. We just have to do the work. And that's what we're seeing. And I would say this, I can't tell you every single principal was so eager to take the SBAC in 2019, or this year, 2020, because they felt they had worked so hard, and you would have seen the growth. And that's what we're hoping for. But it's now, we don't have to wait until next July to see those scores. We can now see them through the benchmarks that are given at the district level and any of the assessments that are decided. So yeah, you should be seeing that growth. And in corrective reading, you should see the kids moving out of that, because it's a get them in, get them out. It's not a course where it's, as we used to call, long haulers. They stay in a remediation class and they're there for 5, 6 years. They should be getting them in, getting them out within a year or two. That shows you that the program is working if it's delivered effectively. And those are some measures that we can count on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank
It's a
you so
pleasure
much
to
for
be
your
here.
time. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Any on the phone?
Okay, and Jenny's here.
I didn't see her.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, our next presentation is an update on high school athletics.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to present on behalf of Palo Verde High School Athletics. I did provide a handout for each of you. You should have that in front of you. I'll be referencing that during the presentation. So to start, when I last updated you, we were given the guidance from CDPH, the December 14th guidance on youth sports. That continues to be the guidance that CIF is using to make modifications and adjustments to the schedule and calendar for high school athletics. So that is the basis of a lot of this information I share tonight. When we got that, at the last board meeting, there were some contingencies on getting started according to the CIF calendar dates. Those being the lifting of the stay-at-home order, namely. So on January 25th, as you guys are all aware, the stay-at-home order was lifted, and what has happened since that time, that's kind of shifted us into being really busy preparing and getting ready in anticipation of what we hope will be the start of our PV athletics. What we've been doing is getting the athletes cleared. Coaches have been working on their coaching requirements. We've been having league meetings. We're still in the process of adjusting schedules, clarifying and making sense of all the CIF modifications that come with it, handed down from CDPH. So with that being said, in an effort to hopefully move forward, we have also crafted TV athletic safety protocols according to the CDPH guidelines and CIF. So what you're looking at in the handout is the protocols that we've created for PV athletics. This handout is specifically for sports and practice and competition in the Riverside County, and Purple Tier Sports. So that's our lens for the protocols is just Purple Tier tonight. We're interested in moving forward with those, and this is the guidance for that. Why the Purple Tier Sports? Those are low contact sports. They're individual sports or can be grouped in small cohorts where the risk of transmission is lower. It allows for those outdoor activities. That's important that they're outdoor activities that allow for consistent wearing of face coverings and being socially distanced within any practice and or competition. So if you look at the handout and you'll see the calendar start dates, I've listed just the PV allowable Purple Tier sports. Those are the ones we offer in the yellow. Those are our sports for PV, and the start date is the start date that CIF gave. So those were tentative pending board approval if we were able to start. As you can see in the red, cross country and swim, the CIF start date for practices was February 1st. So we've now passed that date, and if you look, I've included the end date as well and the CIF season. The significance of that is that you'll notice that CIF has to continue with the planning. The CDPH guidance, according to the colored tier status for the blueprint for a safer economy, really prioritizes our spring sports that were lost last year. So on this list, with the exception of girls golf, those are all spring sports who lost the season last year. So they're prioritizing that purple, but they're also lower risk transmission. Now, the other two sports, again, we're focusing on purple, but the two other sports that were lost in the spring, baseball and softball, would be red tier. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I wanted to point out with cross country, we have an urgency to kind of decide what we're doing in our district and whether or not we're going to move forward, because especially with cross country, because if you notice it's a season 1 CIF sport, the time frame is slowly dwindling. It's a very small time frame, and within that time frame, not only do we have to get the kids, have the meetings, we've cleared most of the kids, but we got to get the information out to them, make announcements, get them practicing. You have to have a mandatory of 5 practices to even have a competition. Right now, our league is working on the schedules, but right now, tentatively, they have a competition for cross country next week. And so the timeline's pretty urgent there. But cross country, being season 1, is the one we really got to think about moving ahead. And then the swim has a longer time frame. In season 1, the CIF is a little more flexible. The other sports listed, golf, boys and girls golf, track and field, are season 2, so they have a longer time frame. So, the idea is that we can make a decision tonight that we hopefully move forward with some of these purple tier sports and make a quick turnaround on what we need to do for cross country. So right now we have 160 student athletes interested in just these purple tier sports based on our registration, which closed last Friday. Below the calendar there, we have our general guidelines. So these are the safety protocols that all sports will follow. And again, this information is a combination of resources from CDPH and the December 14th Youth Sports Guidance and CIF, as well as, district guidelines through the county. So the general guidelines for students, staff, and coaches are listed there. Most importantly, the COVID mitigation strategies of wearing a mask at all times, social distancing measures in place at all times, hygiene and bringing your own water, no sharing of food or equipment. The good thing about these purple tier sports is that they're individual sports. There's limited equipment. And they're outside, so that is why, again, part of the rationale for wanting to start these ones. Hand washing stations and sanitizer accessible, designated restrooms. So, reading down, I'm just gonna skip a few, but they're there for your viewing, and at the end, if you have questions, you can ask. I do want to highlight on the general guidelines. It's important to note that coaches and student athletes may only participate in one team. Based on the CDPH guidance from that December 14th, CDPH has defined a team as basically a stable group. It's not a traditional cohort like the reopening plan for academics, it was the 14-2 ratio. So those stable groups consist of a group of fixed membership that stays together throughout the season, so they may not interact. That being said, we do have, with PV Athletics, you know, we struggle sometimes to get coaches. We are lucky that we have all of our coaches lined up for these sports, and pending the decision tonight to move forward. But our cross country and track, according to CIF, are going to be considered one cohort. So that is kind of a lot of kids with our coaches, but we can, once we have direction, make decisions about how we will group it into smaller groups. But cross country and track are a single coach and cohort, or stable group, I should say. And then boys and girls golf, same thing. We have one coach who will do both, and that'll be a stable cohort as well. As far as if any student exhibits symptoms, they'll be sent home. When we get to the point of spectators, they're not permitted at practices and competitions. And then according to CIF, it states that any student athlete testing positive for COVID may not return to practice or competition until cleared. It's kind of like the return to play protocol for concussions. So all of these general guidance would apply to whatever sport we're starting. The guidelines represent kind of, you know, they're our base, but everything is flexible and will be a phased approach, so we can continue to remain within the scope of the state public health guidelines. So I'm going to flip over to the next page. What we have here, the back page I should say, are the daily symptom self-screening. We will have a checklist for coaches at practices, which will, you know, they can check off at practice, but we can also have the kids do that at home, and we will provide them guidance on how to do that. Anyone who has symptoms, of course, we would follow the district protocols with the nurse for action steps. Before practice, again, the students will do that daily self-screen, and then they'll be required to wear a mask on and off campus until their ride picks them up. At practice, the participants should always wear the face coverings. According to CDPH, it says when participating in the activity, even with heavy exertion, as tolerated. So with swim, obviously in the pool we're not going to wear them, but any point where the coach is talking to the athletes outside the pool, you know, they'll keep their distance and everyone will have the mask on, whether it be on the sideline or participating. Let's see.
Is there any questions from the board at this point?
Yeah, do our coaches have the little quick hand thermometer kind of?
Yes. After tonight, you know, we have some next steps laid out, which we'll work with FMOT to get the supplies we need. We've already put in an order for the base, but we'll obviously work closely with them to make sure we have that. I did receive the thermometers today, which would be something we can do at practice, and then also when we get to the point of transportation, we'll hash out that plan as well. So we do have the supplies from FMOT. Anyone else at this time?
So we really just need to, as a board, to give direction. It's not something that we have to have an action item for. Personally, I think it's time to get kids back to some level of involvement, and this, you know, this has been deemed safe by public health at this point. So personally, I'm all for it. Where the rest of the board stands on that?
I think so too, because it's getting, you know, these kids are seeing these other, like this weekend there was a baseball there was baseball games, there's soccer games going on, there's, you know, and I don't know who's putting these on, but I'd like to see our kids get back into into that.
Yeah, I agree. It would definitely benefit, you know, their social and emotional well-being to be able to provide these athletic experiences and connect with the kids. I think a lot of kids have been anxious and anticipating, you know, the start. If we can start with purple and move forward with that, we'll see what happens, you know.
Well, everybody, I don't know if you could hear Martha, but she said she agreed with moving forward, so the whole board supports you on bringing these athletics back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny.
All right, our next presentation is technology department projects. Ms. Lois Schaefer, and Mr. Tim Slagan.
I lost you. Good evening, board. We gave you an update, I think, in November for October, and now we thought we'd come back 3 months later just to give you an update of what's been going on in our tech department. My name's Lois Schaefer, and you know Mr. Slegan. We bought 10 more laptop computers, and we're distributing to teachers to replace our aging Surface Pros and Dell laptops. How many are still available of the 10? 12 of the 10 are available?
That's pretty good. By 10 or 12.
No, that makes sense, okay. And we still have a few, yeah, they are going fast, that's right. We have a few desktops that still being or that have been donated, and teachers are still requesting them.
Yeah, I don't have an exact count on how many we have, but we have less than 10, 10 to 15.
Very good.
They're still being utilized.
We bought 3 different type of headsets for teachers. We bought 50 each, and other than the one that my cat ate. How many, I know you pass them out to the schools, and they're distributing them?
As needed, yeah, when teachers are requesting to make the request to the principals, and as those requests come in, they get sent to us. We maybe handed out 30 Bluetooth headsets, 35, 40 Bluetooth headsets, a handful of the single ear, a handful of the dual ear. So as teachers are requesting them, we have them in stock to give out.
We picked 3 different kinds, and we're letting the teachers pick which one they want.
I just have one question. The desktop donated by the prison, are they useful? Because I know in the past sometimes they didn't meet our standards.
I was worried about them at first, but yeah, they're very good machines. We
Okay.
had ones sitting right here. They were better machines than some of the ones that we had out there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
i7 quality machine.
But they don't have cameras.
The
They weren't-
laptops, yeah.
Oh, the laptops, yeah. Okay. We talked about, when we were here in November, telling you about a virtual machine failing, and a virtual machine, another one failed. So
Same
you
one.
Same one.
Yeah, same one.
Same one.
Hard drive failure, it happens. We had a meeting with RCW today to kind of explain it. Moving parts, you know, they're old, they have a life cycle, and they unfortunately failed in a way that took the whole server down. So we lost a handful of things. Luckily this time we were better equipped to handle it. Services weren't really disrupted. Everything was back up within the week. And we're working with RCW to kind of shore those things up so that if it happens again, we're even more well equipped.
The district office was moved to this campus, which meant phone lines being transferred, fax lines being transferred, network lines being transferred. And I told Tim I wanted him to brag on himself, and he won't do it. That was a ton of work. People were crawling through ceilings to drop lines to where I want my desk in this corner. Well, then we have to get the line over there. And from this side of the building to that side of the building. And fax lines where fax lines hadn't been in years. Anything you want to add to that? I mean, you guys did a great job. You did a lot of work, and I want you to. But what did I miss?
I'm just happy that we were able to get everybody set up and working as quickly as we were able to do. There's still some things sitting out there, some cable cleanup. We've got to run some molding and make things look nice. But yeah, I'm just happy everybody's up and running as quickly as we are.
We got some new Chromebooks in, and they are being set up into our system and sent to libraries to be traded out for kids whose Chromebooks aren't working. And so they're set up and ready to go, and students are using them as they need them. CalPads Fall 1 has been certified. Those are CalPads Fall 1 certified. 4 words You have no idea how much work that has taken. Tim and Haley in special ed, with Edward supporting special ed throughout getting all that, has been week after week after week. Turn in the report, 7 fatal errors. Turn in the report after you fixed it, 12 fatal errors. Tons of work. It was due, and they kept bumping the deadline because it has been so difficult. The state has bumped the deadline to Thursday. We were able to certify today. Again, with special ed and with tech, Tim's department working so hard on this. Tim working on it, so that was really good. Anything you want to add to that? No. Dot cams. We've received more dot cams and handing them out as needed. And any guess how many are still?
We purchased 64, 65. I think we handed out half of those already. Those went really fast. There were a lot of people waiting.
Yes. And we could have used one tonight with Ms. Hahn's report. We ordered an additional 161 hotspots for students' use, and they've been received and are already being distributed. I don't think there are very many of those left. No. LTE equipment. We got 3 pallets worth in the warehouse. District staff tagged it. It's been installed. We're waiting for some final steps. There is still some equipment coming in, and I'm going to call them the modems, for lack of a better word. And we're walking through the setup steps. We need to get the SAS system going. We're learning what that is because this is all new to us. We need to get this going. And then we need to still have our plan on how we're going to get these to students. They're going to have like a modem and an antenna. How do we get these to students, get their hotspot back? These will be for people within 1 mile of the antenna that's up. So we're still waiting for the system to be finalized, and we still have to create our plan of how to get this into students' houses.
What's LTE?
LTE.
Good question. I do not know what LTE
I don't know either.
It's the 4G to cell tower.
Oh, okay.
So it'll allow us to, it will allow us to eliminate hotspots within a mile of all the campuses, correct?
Okay.
About,
Okay.
well, hopefully. Yeah.
The contractors I spoke with gave me an estimate
Maybe between 2 to 3 miles.
Okay.
of that extended range. But yeah, like Bill said, all the equipment was received, most of the equipment was received, we're still waiting on a couple of shipments.
Contractors got it all installed up at the site. They got plugged in Thursday or Friday. We actually plugged them in. And we're working with Steve from Red River to get the whole setup all.
And will it be able to benefit students? Say there's students that didn't necessarily need the hotspot, but are on very slow, the local runs pretty slow sometimes. Will we be able to offer it to them also, or is it just?
We started with ordering 300 of the modem sets, and again, I don't know if that's the right word. We have over 800 hotspots out. So, but not all those hotspots are within a mile of the antennas that are being put up. And you said 2 or 3 miles. So we're going to start with the hotspots because we're paying a monthly fee on those.
Right.
And if we see a bigger need and we need more, we're going to order more because we see this really helping our students.
Right.
So not immediately, but probably just a little bit.
Eventually. Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a long
Solution.
And then we're going to work on adding, again, longer term, adding towers other places. Like if we had a tower in Ripley, that would help a
Right.
lot of families.
And it's much more cost effective than the hotspots.
The hotspots have a
The monthly
advisor,
fee.
and they have a monthly fee.
Right.
Right. I don't know about cost effective because of the tower and everything, but I think you get
Long-term cost effective.
long-term cost effective. Technology tickets on top of all this. In November, there were 37. December, there were 29. In January, there were 45. And that does not count all the phone calls, emails, and while you're here, tech requests. I probably have tech coming to my room at least once a week right now, but I don't use the system, and I really should. So there's a lot these 3 guys are doing. I do, I know, I should use it. I think it supports something. Yeah. So that's what's going on in tech, that's what we're doing, and this is just a summary of the big projects. We have 3 tech people now, they're busy every single day. Do you guys have any questions?
Oh, good job.
Oh, just thank you. And it's great over here, the way everything is set up. It's very nice to come over here.
I have a question. Yes, ma'am. Are all these things that are coming in, are they being tagged, and are they keeping track of where they're going and who's getting them, receiving them, and using them?
We're tagging everything, and anything over $500 is being tracked in our system per our federal rules. Track of where it's put and.
Yeah, the major tower components were tagged because they were so expensive. The modems, the antennas, the equipment that's going to go home is getting
Will be
tagged.
tagged.
And will be most likely tagged in our library system. Same way we track our Chromebooks and we track the hotspots.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, thank you. All right. We have no one for our hearing session this evening. Reports and communications, board member report. Martha?
I have nothing to report.
Anna? Annie?
I have nothing to report.
Dr. Guth?
I'm really glad to see the board set up and the classroom set up. What a tremendous amount of work by the staff. And, yeah, by the staff. So, that's all.
And I have nothing to report. The superintendent's report.
Yes, I want to report that this is Happy National School Counseling Week, and for our fabulous school counselors, want to thank you for all your good work supporting students. Our school counselors implement a comprehensive school counseling program, and it's the best way to meet the developmental needs of all of our students. They serve as advocates for our students, and I just want to take this opportunity to give a big thank you to our school counselors during School Counseling Recognition Week.
All right, our fiscal update report, Mr. Sanchez.
Good evening, board, superintendent, community. Don't have much of an update tonight. I will bring you guys next month the second interim report to let you know kind of how we project to end the rest of the year with the financials. I have one piece of news I think that's noteworthy is we completed the cash flow projections and turned in whatever TRAN documents that the RCOE TRAN pool wanted, and I don't believe we will need it. Doesn't mean that events can't occur in the future that will shock us, but if we're pretty stable from now to June, we should be just fine with the cash. So that'll save us a little bit of borrowing costs, a little bit of interest. We'll continue to be as conservative as we can, and like I said, if all goes well, I think we'll be okay without the loan. That's pretty much it for the update. Any questions?
Oh, that's good news. Thank you. All right, and we have no reports of associations this evening. Consent items. Items listed under the consent calendar motions are considered to be routine and are acted on by the governing board in one motion. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. It is understood that administration recommends approval of all consent items. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the governing board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. L1, minutes. L2, Personnel Report 2020-21-10. L3, Ratification of Purchase Order Listing for November and December. L4, Approval of Licensing Agreement Renewal with Document Tracking Services. L5, Ratification of Teach Town Transition to Adulthood Online Subscription Renewal. And L6, Approval of 2020 Service Agreement with George Batchy for Multidisciplinary Team Report Technical Assistance. Call for a motion of L1 through L6.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Action items. As we stated earlier, M1 is unnecessary. M2, approval of Memorandum of Understanding MOU with CSEA, 2020 Reclassification Committee and negotiated job description. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? M3, ratification of COVID-19 school guidance checklist. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? M4, second reading and approval, board policies, exhibits, bylaws recommended for update, December 2020 CSBA policy guide sheet. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Other business? Any other business? All right, future agenda items? Call this meeting adjourned. Next regular meeting, Tuesday, February 16th,